I had barely moved into my new lake house when the trouble started. The property was beautiful, private, and exactly what I had dreamed about. I thought the hardest part would be finishing construction. I had no idea the HOA had already decided the lake belonged to them. The house sat on a small private peninsula, surrounded by water. I had purchased the property legally, including its shoreline rights and private access. Every document had been reviewed before I closed the deal. As far as I was concerned, everything was settled. Then Victoria showed up. She was the HOA president and apparently believed every piece of waterfront property belonged under her authority. She stood outside my property holding a clipboard. Her first words were not a greeting. She told me the HOA needed access to my waterfront. I asked her why. She said the community had always used the docks in that area. I calmly told her that the docks were on my property. Victoria didn't seem impressed by my answer. She said the HOA had used those docks for years. I told her that historical use didn't automatically transfer ownership. She responded with one sentence that made everything clear. She said, "The HOA has always controlled the shoreline." I asked her to show me the document proving it. She didn't have one. Instead, she told me the HOA would take care of it. The docks were part of property I had purchased. I had plans to renovate them and build a safer private access system. The HOA's demand made no sense. But Victoria clearly wasn't planning to accept no for an answer. Victoria made a phone call before leaving. She told someone that I was refusing community access. Then she looked at my construction crew and smiled. That smile told me this wasn't over. My foreman Ray came over after she left. He said Victoria had been asking workers about the docks. I told him nobody was allowed to change anything without my approval. Ray nodded and went back to work. The next morning, something strange happened. Several vehicles appeared near my property. There was an HOA truck, 2 SUVs, and a group of people carrying clipboards. They weren't there for a friendly visit. Victoria had brought an entire group with her. She walked onto my property as if she owned the place. I stepped forward and asked everyone to stop. She simply told me they were there for an inspection. I asked her to leave the property. She said the HOA didn't need my permission. I told her this wasn't common community property. It was privately owned land. Victoria insisted the HOA had easement rights. I asked her to show me the recorded easement. She said the paperwork was on file. I told her that wasn't the same thing. I had already done my homework before buying the property. The survey clearly showed the private shoreline boundaries. The docks were inside my property line, and there was no community easement over them. For the first time, Victoria looked uncertain. She studied the survey and then looked toward the docks. I could see her trying to find another argument. Then she made a much bigger mistake. She told me the community needed those docks for emergency access. I asked why an emergency access route had never appeared on the property documents. She had no answer, but she still refused to leave. At that point, I decided to stop arguing. I made a phone call and documented everything that was happening. I wasn't going to escalate the situation. I simply wanted everyone off my property. A few minutes later, a police SUV arrived. Daniel stepped out and immediately assessed the situation. Victoria rushed toward him with her clipboard. She started talking before he had even closed his car door. Marcus joined Daniel a moment later. Victoria told them I was violating HOA rules. She said I was blocking community access. The officers listened carefully without taking sides. Daniel asked Victoria one simple question. "Can you show me the legal document granting that access?" Victoria hesitated. For the first time, she didn't have an immediate answer.